Good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott, and welcome to the weekly trade report video for the week of May 7th, 2017. So, first up, let's take a look at the Dow Jones ETF, the DIA, and we can see here that the Dow broke out of this kind of descending channel pattern a couple weeks ago, had a big gap up here, and then it's been basically in a flag pattern over the last week or so, and it looks like it's ready to test new highs. So this is a nice looking little bull flag pattern here on the Dow ETF. So it does look like the market is going to be heading higher and potentially new highs sometime next week. So I really like the look of the Dow Jones here. And if we take a look at the SPY, kind of a similar story there. You see how it kind of had this pullback, put in a double bottom right down here around 232, broke out of this this descending channel pattern, and then this kind of in a flag pattern, and then Friday had a nice little pop, and it's on the verge of new highs. So it does look like the market is heading higher, which is very conducive to swing trading, which I know I mentioned on last week's video that I was really focusing more on swing trading and getting away from the day trading as much, and so far it's working. To me, it's more effective for me. Some people are better at day trading, but just me personally, I've had success swing trading, and I'm getting back to that and kind of getting away from day trading like I was doing for a couple of months earlier this year. But so anyway, the markets look really healthy here, and it does look like the markets are going to make some new highs next week. So the IWM small cap. So this one had this 134 area of support, kind of had a breakout through 140 and then kind of pulled back. So not as pretty as, say, the Dow or the SPY, but still pretty healthy looking. Looks like it's could find some support here at this 138. But the small cap ETF, Russell 2000, does looks pretty good here. Biotech sector held this key support from a couple weeks ago. Right in this area, you can see was prior resistance and held that support. Broke out of this kind of descending channel here, and then so now it just looks like it's kind of in a flag pattern. Next resistance is up here, 325 area. Actually, that's more like 303. I'm sorry. So that would be the next area of resistance for the biotech sector, the IBB. I still like the healthcare biotech sectors. I'm still finding lots of good setups in those sectors. The other sectors that are pretty healthy are the semiconductors and the housing, basic building material sectors. Those have been pretty strong. BLD is one of the names. It's been really a leader in that sector. So the energy sector still in this downtrend longer term, although it does look oversold intermediate term, so you can get a rally for a few days. And so here's kind of the descending trend line here on the energy. XLE, you can see just a series of lower highs and lower lows, and so what you're looking for is this to put in kind of a double bottom, some type of reversal. It looked like it was going to break out back in mid-April, kind of put in a really big bounce, and I thought maybe it'd put in a double bottom at 68 here, and then it just failed. So once it broke that 68, that was an indication it was going to go lower. But so yeah, the energy sector is still in a bear market for now. Yeah, so here's the home builders ETF, XHB. You can see nice steady trend up. Looks like it pulled back. 3750 looks like it held that as support, and there's a lot of good looking names in that sector as well. Alright, so now we'll get into the names that I looked at last week on the watch list, and then we'll talk about a couple trades that I made last week and the trade ideas for Monday. Okay, so first up is, let's see, FMI. Been watching this one for a while and actually entered a swing trade on this one earlier this week. So I really like the chart here. And so it had this 35. This is almost like an inverted head and shoulders. See, this would be the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder. And so when it broke 35, that was really the trigger to buy. I did miss that, and then so I was watching this and it kind of flagged out and tried to perk up through 36. So I took a position just below 36, and it did pull back. It actually closed, let's see, 35.60 area, I think. So this was an after hours tick to 37 on Friday evening. So that's not what it closed at, but I do like this one if it can get through 36. I do think it's going to go, and so I did enter a swing position on this one. And basically my target is using this 30 as the low of the pattern, and 35 is the high. So I'm looking at maybe a $40 price target based on this pattern depth. So that's my current only swing position. All right, let's take a look at some of the other names from last week's watch list. So there's the biotech, this ABUS, still kind of consolidating. This is a kind of a thinner name. Yeah, I think it trades like 100,000 shares a day, but you know, this one had a big breakout back here and it's been sideways. So I'm just waiting for this one to kind of break out through, say, you know, 350. Actually, it'd probably be best to look at the high of these candle wicks, but looking for some volume expansion. So this pattern still looks decent, just not ready yet. PTN, another nice pattern. It's a small cap bio, and so right around this 45 spot, it had this. I really like the way this pattern is developing. So it had this big run up to 45, pulled back, tested it again. Now it looks like it's putting in a higher low, almost like an ascending triangle, something like that. And just looking for a break of 45 with volume could be a trade there. So yeah, it's a smaller cap name, but it does have a nice pattern. So I'd look for this one through 45, and then a target of maybe 50 to 55, something like that on the 45 break. But it still hasn't. It's still a nice pattern developing. ZGNX, been on this one for a while. It finally broke and held. Had a false breakout last week, and then it finally poked through. So this one in the area right around 11 to 11.10, somewhere in there. You know, had this big break, had some good volume on this day, and then it pulled all the way back, and then it ramped up again on Friday on some pretty significant volume. So the ZGNX, I still like this one. I think it could be going higher. If you're looking at a price target, I'd use this 10.2 as the base here, and then use, say, 11.10 as the high. So I don't know, roughly $1. So, and then looking at the chart technically, it looks like the next resistance, if this breaks, the next spot would be up here at 13. So ZGNX looks good for next week. CVRS, this was a failed break, had this spot at 140 right here, tried to go, and then it kind of pulled back, and looks like it's had a decent day on Friday. But this one, I'd still keep an eye on this one if it can get back to 140 area and try to break that. So it looks like it's holding above the 50-day moving average, and not a bad looking pattern. It's still consolidating, but 140 would be the area I'd be looking on this one. ARCO, this was a pattern I had on the watch list for, I think, Monday. So you're watching this 840 spot, and you can see I didn't trade this one, but it did have a nice break. So here's the pattern, and then you have the 840 break, and then now it's up here at like 920. And then so if you're looking for a target, use this 7 somewhere. You know, I take an average of the depth, say 720, 760, maybe use like 750 to 840. So add $1 onto that. That'd give you a 940, which it looks like it already got to that point. But so yeah, this was a nice breakout. You could have got in on this 840 break and had a nice run. TLGT, kind of a similar pattern as the previous one. This little flag pattern. And so this one broke through this resistance around 820, yeah, right around 820, 825 area. Nice break, and then it kind of pulled back. So it looks like it's going to, finding some support in that area, and it could ramp back up. Another, I think that's another bio name. But still, the chart looks longer term, looks pretty good. All right, so PTX, this one was a nice winner for me last week, although it kept going without me, and I sold a little bit too soon. But so looking at this chart, what I was looking at is this 450 area, based on this resistance back here in late February, the big gap up, and then it kind of tested that area again right around 450, pulled back, and then on this day had a really big volume. If you take a look at the daily, this is a big huge volume spike on, I don't even think there was any news on it, but it had a big volume spike. So intraday I got up to like almost $5. Actually the high on this day I think was 5. So that was another key point. And so as this one started grinding higher, I was watching that 450 spot, and I thought I'm going to buy this 450 break and then watch the $5 spot. And so what happened is I held this thing as a swing, and I was going to use basically kind of using this trend line as my stop out, so something like that. And sure enough, this thing just kept grinding higher, so I was patient with it, and finally it ramped up on Thursday and broke through that 5 spot and just really ran. So I got in at 448, I think, somewhere in there, and then on this day, on this big volume spike, I sold at 538. So I had a pretty good profit, and then watch this thing just kept on going. It was kind of painful thinking about selling so soon, but I did catch a good piece of it, so I'm happy about that. But that just goes to show, when you get these big breakouts, if you leave a trailer piece or leave at least a partial position, you can catch a bigger move. But I didn't do that. I mean, the market hasn't been really conducive lately to swing trading. It's been very, these things make these big pops and then fail, and so that's kind of frustrating too if you hold. So it's kind of that mentality of lock in the gains because the market's been not really good for swing trading, but that seems to be changing lately, and the indexes are really showing some nice patterns. So, but anyway, this one looks extended now. I'm not sure where you would trade this thing now. Maybe it needs to set up again, but it was a nice trade last week for me, and I hope some of you guys caught that one. All right, let's take a look at. So this VSTM, this is a fantastic looking chart. It still hasn't broken yet, but if you're looking at this, kind of what I'm seeing. Something like this, right? It's a very nice ascending triangle type pattern, and then it's kind of got this resistance up at like 220. So you can see here I had a big run, pulled back, tested this kind of breakout area around 220, pulled back, put in a higher low, tested it again. So this is a third test, and then it's putting back. So it looks like it's going to put in another higher low and then retest it again. So this is a fantastic looking setup. Just keep watching this thing, and it does look like it's going to go in the near future. But I love this chart. It's VSTM. Just keep that one on your radar. It's top watch. PRQR. It's the lower float bio, but you can see a really clear breakout here at 5. Had a break on this day, but it's a very thin name, so understandable if you didn't trade it. But technically it broke, and then it had a nice little push, and it looks like it's kind of flagging up here after this breakout. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this one just kind of trade sideways and then have another run. That $5 spot was a real key level. Take a look at this chart way back here. So 5, real key spot, and there's really no resistance at this point. So yeah, the only issue with this one is this is very thin. Trades like 50,000 shares a day, but very nice breakout, and does look like it's going higher. That PRQR. All right, NVCR. So this is another nice watch for Monday. See, this one had a big gap up, kind of just slowly grinding sideways, and then it's got this spot here at 12. So this one, if it can get through 12, it'd be a nice buy. And then as a target, you know, kind of using the average depth of this base right here, let's say like maybe 1050 to 12. So give you a target at somewhere around 1350, something like that, or maybe even this up in this area up here. So that's a nice looking chart in VCR. Very, very nice looking chart for Monday. AUPH, this one still looked like it was going to break out through, you know, this area here, and so it failed and kind of pulled back, but it's, you know, bouncing off the rising 50-day. So this is another one to keep on watch. See if it can hold this 50-day and then perk back up through 770, 780 area, somewhere up there. It's a nice looking chart still, just needs to set up again. FBIO, it's a failed break through this area right here. Tested it once, twice, came back. It looked like it was going to go on this day, and then it got rejected. This one just, you know, longer term looks good. Just needs to kind of set up again, and then you know, get a retest of this area up here for a breakout. All right, meat. So this one is just a beautiful setup for Monday. Take a look at this, see, 1 year chart. Yeah, so I had this big run back here, kind of pulled back, and now it's just starting to grind higher. And so the key spot on this one is that right around 612, 12 area, 610. So here's a big gap up right here. And then it tested this 6, pulled back, and you know, here's kind of the rising ascending triangle pattern right there. Right, so, and then it closed at 609 or 610. I think it closed at 609, but after hours went to 610. And so the high of this little pattern right here is right around 610. So this one on a 610 break would be a great buy. It had some good volume on Friday, you know, decent volume. And but technically speaking, it's a beautiful chart. And so looking at a potential target, I would use somewhere, you know, this low right here, say 550 to 6. So maybe 650 would be a target, and then maybe 7 as a second target. But meat is one of the top setups for Monday. It looks great. Juno, this one was watching for kind of a breakout through this area, and then it got rejected. I'm not sure what happened there. They had earnings or news or something, but it got really slammed on volume on Friday. So it's one of those things where you gotta, if you had a position, you know, you gotta cut it. But here's kind of the rising support level here, and on the break of that would have been a trigger to go ahead and cut your position. So Juno, just a failed breakout. KEM, it's been basing here just below, got some resistance just above right around 12, you know, 12.15 kind of area. You know, here's a big run up, and then started basing out, caught up with the rising 50-day, held that, and now it's on the verge of breaking out through, you know, this area right in here, 12.15, and then, you know, the clean break would be the high of this wick. But this is a nice pattern. Really nice looking setup for Monday. Okay, HUSA, this was one that I closed out my swing. I think I closed it out Monday, but let's see here. I think I held this one over the weekend, and so I'm looking at this, you know, this was a 40 break, so this is an OTC stock, and I thought this thing was going to go have another run, and then it didn't. So this day it kind of pulled back, and then it started to fade, so I went ahead and cut my position, and then I think I broke even or a very small loss on it, but then it pulled all the way back down here. And so this one, I don't really see anything at the moment. You know, this 40 spot looks like it's still kind of a resistance area. But yeah, this was a trade that I made that didn't pan out. I should have I guess I should have took some profits on this big day here, but I tried to swing it and it didn't work out so well. So that's okay as long as you cut your losses. All right, APOP. Still really like this chart, and I would use somewhere in this 980, 10 area, but had this big run up, pulled back, and then gapped up, and looks like it's just kind of flagging, a little flag pattern, something like this. So still like the way this one's setting up, maybe through 1080, 10 spots, something like that, somewhere in that area. But I do like the way this pattern here, this APOP is setting up. So it's a good one to watch for next week. Fuel, here's another one. So a couple spots, like 550s, kind of an area in this general area here, and then clean would be way up here, but it does look like it tested this 550, 560, pulled back, tested it again, and just kind of grinding higher. This will be one to watch. Still like this pattern through 560, 570, something like that. Kite, a bio. So here's the base. Had this big run up and then just started basing out, and looks like it's getting tighter and tighter. Volatility contraction pattern here. So this one through 84 and then 85 can really get it going. And you can see the rising 50-day catching up with that as well. As they converge on each other, these things can have a tendency to really run. But this kite technically is setting up for a nice breakout, so one to watch. Okay, Kirk's. Thursday and Friday, look at the volume on this one. Had some really big volume on Thursday, and then Friday had an even bigger volume and had a nice little push. And so it's sitting right there at 650 area. So you can see back here it was resistance, tested it again, and then kind of got to that area back in mid-March, and then now it's back there again. So this would be one to watch for next week for some continuation. Do that, right up in here, and then I would use this 570 to 650, take that difference there, add that to the breakout. So, but it's pretty. It's got the volume, it's got the pattern. It's a nice looking setup. All right, AVXL. This one, been watching this one for quite a while, and so look like it's back above the rising 50-day. The 6 area is a key level. It's broken that a couple of times and then gets faded. But it looks like it's shooting back up near 6 again, and if it can break through 6, next area would be right around 630, and then the highs of these wicks. But this is this base pattern here has been going for a few months or more, and it does look like it's ready to go. Decent volume on Friday, relatively speaking. So this AVXL, it still looks good. I like it for the 6 breakout, and then a retest of say 630, and then some maybe potentially up here at 640. All right, SONS. This is just a classic bull flag pattern. Had earnings and broke out of this pattern, kind of basing pattern here. Had big earnings, and so you can see the big volume spike on earnings, and then just kind of traded sideways, pulled back. And so this is just a classic bull flag, and so you're looking for this one to break out through kind of this area right here, say $8, and then the next spot would be the high of these wicks. But this one, brief pullback, and then looks like it's ready to make some new highs. Really like the SONS chart. KOPN. Yeah, so this one just looks like a little flag pattern right up here. Had a big pop and then sideways and just looks higher. So this one looks technically looks really good. I think that's also a bio. right, NIOT, another kind of a thinly traded bio, and so it's got these around this 210 spot, maybe just a little bit, maybe a little bit higher. Yeah, so 215, 214 would be the high of that, based on opening and closing prices, you know, right around the 210 area. So this one had a decent pop on Friday. So this one, if it can get some volume and break through that area, it might be worth a trade. And it could be shooting back up here to, say, 240. So NIOT technically looks good. All right, and last one would be HRTX. You know, this one, right around this 15 spot, kind of broke it, pulled back, broke it again, kind of pulled back, and then so now, if we look at the, you know, right around this area here, 1575, 1580, somewhere in that area would be a good area to get in on it, and you can see decent volume on Friday. And you can see here's a longer term chart, HRTX, you know, 1580. It does look like it's ready to make a move. So anyway, yeah, the market does look strong. Looks like it could be, you know, the major indexes could be breaking out to new highs, and there's a lot of good setups out there. FMI is my current only swing position, and so it should be a good week next week. So all right, guys, you have a good Sunday, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks.